It's Dave Nemo Weekends with Jimmy Mack and Lindsay Lawler.
I'm trying to get back to Texas. You know I'm trying to get back home. Here we go.
Our next guest, by the way, offers proven alternatives to traditional stress management advice, so that if you are a leader, you can do even more while stressing less and be happier while you do it. Collective stress levels continue to rise across the country, across North America, and people continue to burn out. It's clear that mainstream stress management advice is failing folks, so we actually have an answer, a panacea, a way to kind of cure the common stress. Most successful professionals know what they are supposed to do. This person, however, knows what exactly you should do. Go to AlisonGraham.com. If you head over there, speaker, consultant, author, and course creator joins us this morning, having spent 17 years studying mainstream personal and professional development advice, has navigated her own course, and she's going to share it with us this morning. Alison, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this conversation.
Well, we're super excited to have you. For one, I got to meet you at the Women in Trucking conference, and Dave Nemo and I got to sit down and talk with you a bit, an interview. And I love the idea. You know, it's fun. That conference specifically, I always have so much fun at. I love seeing, trucking topics, but female focused, and I don't mean just woman versus man. I just mean the topics that are interesting or changing. And there's a real feminine energy around self-help, around personal development, personal growth. And I love that it's being talked about more and more. And it's funny, Alison, that it seems like the more it's so basic, but the more we make this the norm, the more it becomes the norm. How simple could that be? So can you talk a little bit, just to at least give our listeners, before we dive into some of these topics here, you've made a career out of helping people get better. What was that moment, and how did you get to the place where you're like, I love to help people. Oh crap, I actually know how to do it. Now it's both my work, my fun, my passion all in one. What was that moment you figured it out, and then you got yourself over the line to this beautiful life that you've created for yourself and others?
Well, it's interesting. You've probably heard the saying that your mess is your message. And I really took that to heart, because when I started my speaking career and the training, I had to overcome my fear of networking and meeting people. And so then naturally I learned how to do that. And then I started getting hired to teach other people how to do it. And what I realized as I got closer with clients was that all the tactics in the world don't matter if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're, concerned about your family or really going through tough times. You're not going to go out and do the work as well as you possibly could. And through that growth in my own business, I was going through some really difficult challenges behind the scenes with surgeries and neuropathic pain and a whole bunch of, everybody has their story, right? What's happening, and others can't see it. And I just hit a certain level of my business where I said, this is my calling. Is I went through all of that so I can help people optimize their performance. Yes, we need to do that because we need to earn a living, right? You've got to be safe on the road and be focused and all of that, but also to deal with that mental and emotional heaviness that is so part of our human experience.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm obsessed with in regards to stress, because you make a real point of saying, while stress might be an illusion, the effects of stress are not, what it does to us. One of the things a lot of people who have called the show in the past always deal with is a combination of both FOMO and feeling like they're going to make the wrong decision, and that our past mistakes and the disasters of our lives prevent us from actually making new mistakes, as Lindsay and I like to say, that we're not willing to take action, and we create a paralysis among ourselves. How much does stress cause that paralysis, that inability to move forward, to make definitive decisions for good or bad, by the way? And I was kind of curious if you could kind of spin out on that.
Sure. And actually, I think it's most important to answer that question is we need to define the different types of stress, because not all stress is created equally. So I would argue that if we had a survival stress situation, so something traumatic, something that's a true adversity, going to change the course of our life forever, and we made a huge mistake that led to some sort of trauma, that would be a survival stress. And then there's no way to get through that except to go through it. Our human, experience is that we will have those survival stress reactions, and we can't judge ourselves for those. So I would say that if there's something that's traumatic that you've done in the past or had happened in the past that prevents you from going and taking that next leap of faith into the unknown of whatever that great thing is, that to me makes a lot of sense. And we need to heal from the adversity in order to move forward. And on the other side, there's this self-inflicted destructive stress. And this is caused by our patterns, by the habits that we have, by our emotions that aren't processed, by the storylines we tell ourselves. And it's why it's so timely that here we are talking on the day when your theme is about breaking those patterns, right? Because it's those patterns that can hold us back unnecessarily. And that is where we have, where you can feel empowered, because we can make new decisions. But I have a certain way of unpacking that so that we don't let those failures hold us back and define who we're going to be.
Okay, well, I want to talk to you about the trauma piece real quick, but you said you have a method for that. Is that something you want to touch on, or
Sure.
better yet, is that okay? Because I know you also provide these services, and we want to make sure we will make sure we direct people your way if they want to work with you, both either one-on-one or from a corporate standpoint as well. But what can you, without quote unquote reading your book here, what are a few tips, maybe maybe a top 2 or whatever tips you can give people in the moment to show kind of the work that you do?
Sure. So the framework sounds very intuitive. It's simply we have to get very specific about what's happening, what's holding us back, what is the problem at hand. And sometimes we're trying to solve for a huge problem, like the revenue is down, right? Or you don't have as many miles this month, right? But there might be pieces of that puzzle, so we've got to really parse that out and get very specific. And then, of course, there's depth in there. But the second piece is critical. And this is around the self-awareness and understanding, how am I reacting to what's happening? And potentially, how am I making it harder than it actually needs to be? And that piece of the puzzle is where I end up doing most of the work with my teams that I work with and the clients. But then that last piece is around solution activation. And so it's interesting because as I was listening to the two of you talk about how you've overcome some really cool, like congratulations, by the way, on, not drinking for 30 years, all of those different pieces are huge, huge, huge wins. But how you did it is not necessarily how it's going to work for somebody else. And that's my problem with a lot of the stress management advice, is that the behaviors, or even all personal development advice, it has to flow through the lens of self-awareness. How am I reacting physically, mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally to this situation that may, in fact, be making it harder? And based on that is how we create the best solutions to problem solve for the human experience.
Really quickly here, and we're going to take a break in a moment. I'm going to land the plane with this question here, and when we and maybe set this up for you to kind of answer this, and then we'll move into a break. What's one of the big kind of breakthroughs in the last couple of years in regards to self-help, in regards to training for truck drivers, is a lot of educational programs are figuring out that you can kind of customize, that when you allow the customer to customize, when you allow the client or your friend to kind of pick their own sort of model, what you then do is you set them up for success because you're not saying one size fits all. Is that kind of what you're getting at here? The idea that you need to take the time with a person to figure out where their point of view is and where they're coming from before you can actually figure out a strategy to help them move forward. Am I hearing you right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for one person, the answer is to exercise. Everybody says you have to exercise. Well, if you're on the road for, your full 10 hours, what are you going to do, right? How are you going to exercise while you're driving? You're not. So that whole piece of advice, we have to figure out a different strategy to keep you physically healthy. Or if you're someone who, really believes that you have to say yes to any request that comes through the door because you
Lindsay.
want to serve, you have a servant's heart. Well, you know what? Then me telling you to just say no, you're just going to be miserable and you're going to feel guilty your whole life. So it doesn't work. That's what I'm talking about, is finding out what are the cues, how are you responding, so that we can find the best solution for you.
One size does not fit all. And it really, Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, and we'll go to this break, but it really comes back to you are your own guru. Trust your own gut. You know what's right for you. You just don't give yourself enough credit sometimes. We're talking with Allison Graham, who's a beautiful speaker, consultant, author. More on this Self-Help Sunday. We're trying to make 2024 your best yet. We'll be right back at Sirius XM 146. It's your Weekend 34. More with Allison Graham to come.
Thank you, Drake.
This seems like a dumb place to hide a test truck.
We took our top secret camo-wrapped new truck and parked it in the world's worst hiding place, a busy truck stop.
It's totally crazy, man.
That's nice. Sleek.
Different. New design for sure. It might be a Freightliner. Might be a Timber. Probably electric bastard.
And while some guessed Volvo,
Volvo? That's Volvo. That's a Volvo truck.
they'll never guess what's under the wrap. See the all-new VNL, January 23rd, volvotrucks.us. Hashtag what the truck.
When professional drivers need fuel and repair, they join Travel Centers of America's Ultra One loyalty program to make their downtime even more rewarding. Ultra One members can earn points on fuel repairs and parking reservations, and you can redeem them in-store or at participating restaurants, and for showers, parking, and Wi-Fi. Manage your loyalty account right in the app and use the Pump Smart feature to check fuel prices and initiate the pump right from your cab. Download Truck Smart today.
By the way, guys, Allison is talking to us from the land of lake-enhanced snow or lake-effect snow, depending upon what you want to call it. And we are so grateful on this cold day for so many people out there, especially you guys who are driving through it, that Allison has made time for us. Thrilled to have her. It's my first chance to meet her. Lindsay and Dave got a chance to interact with her at the Women in Trucking Conference. Guys, please go to AllisonGraham.com and find out all you can about this inspirational speaker, author, coach, and so much more to so many people out there. Allison, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. I'm happy to be here because I can't be outside. You know that, right? I'm so grateful for all the people on the roads today, moving our goods across the countries. And thank you. Just shout out to each and every one of you.
Absolutely, and thank you for saying so. Okay, so you mentioned in the last break about trauma. I love I love trauma. That sounds weird. I do. I've grown to respect my traumas. Actually, first and foremost, I've grown to I can acknowledge my traumas and little thing. We all do that thing where you're telling a story about childhood or whatever, and you think it's funny, and you see everyone stop and kind of look at you like, "Hey, dude, you know that wasn't okay, right?" You're like, "Oh, crap,
not good,
okay.
not good, not
that
good."
wasn't okay, right?" But between just lifelong things that happen, why I love trauma is that I now can see when you're going through something, it's so hard. You can't tell somebody in the moment. It's why we have to really deal with our stuff before we're in our stuff. But do you, and you kind of touched on it, Allison, but the idea of when you're going through some stuff, if you are able to have the wherewithal to know, okay, this sucks, but I'm learning from it. There's something beautiful on the other side. And something I was told once that has landed with me and will stay with me forever is that there's no good and bad. There's only lessons and experiences. That was sort of life-changing for me to realize anything I'm in, I'm learning from and growing from. Your take on trauma, Allison, without you don't need to specifically tell us your traumas, but do you think that your traumas in life, because we all have them, how has that guided you to do the work you do today and be able to slap someone in the face and be like, this too shall pass, right?
Right. And it may not pass, by the way. There are certain traumas
No,
that
fair.
are going to stay
Yeah.
with you forever. And from my perspective, first of all, I am grateful for the challenges that I have experienced in my life, the big ones and the little ones. And the reason is because it really created a fork in the road for me. And each of us faces this, where we say, am I going to let this thing that happened to me define my future, or am I going to find a way to grow through it? And I got scared. I mean, my neurosurgeon told me that I needed to go on disability and I was never going to work full time again, and my pain would never be going away. And, you know, so far the pain hasn't gone away, but I am working full time. And that scared the bejesus out of me. I tell you, I was like, what if he is right? What if I am now, and I was 32 at the time, and I won't tell you my age now, but it's a lot more than that. But what if he's right? And it scared me so much that I had to go looking for answers. And so I believe that we use the trauma to get through, but we need to give ourselves the space and the grace to heal and process the traumas. We need to allow for that, because so often what happens is if we don't do that, if we don't allow ourselves that space and the grace and the understanding, like that's why I love hearing about your journey, Lindsay, like you've just gone on this journey, right, to explore. But if you hadn't done that, then that would shadow everything that you do each and every day, right? Because it would just be stuck there. And, you know, create anger and especially people who are out on the road, you're seeing this everywhere, this misplaced emotion. People are scared about the economy. They're scared about, you know, what's happening. Maybe their relationships are on the brink, and they're taking it out in really challenging ways in these, you know, road rage incidents or anything else that you can see out there that's happening. Like, that's the risk, is if we never truly find our peace inside if we don't deal with those traumas.
We talk about finding a space, by the way, and it's so funny because there are terms we hear over and over again, and the problem with hearing a term over and over again is you stop listening, you stop hearing it. It becomes part of the background noise, and people always talk about somebody having unresolved issues. It's interesting that you put it, you know, finding the space and the time to heal, finding the space, time, and peace to heal, because in a lot of ways that is simply dealing with unresolved issues, that a lot of people continue to make the same mistakes over and over again because they continue to not having dealt with the underlying reasons that put them in those positions. On a practical level, how does one go about, given the busyness of so many people's day, to actually carve out the space necessary to deal with trauma, unresolved issues, and all the other things that are holding us back?
Well, I think, you know, we're looking for a magic pill that, like, we all want that, right? Is how do I make this go away really quickly? And that's the part of the grace, is accepting it's probably not. You're going to have to make the space. But I think it starts with the self-awareness of understanding, where am I not happy? And the one thing I would encourage people to do is to look at, where are the repeating moments of angst? Those things that are constantly happening in your life, and we all have them. And when you get rid of one, you'll find another, because that's just the onion that is personal development. And find that where is the argument that's always happening at home? Where is the, you know, your blood starts boiling when somebody does X, right? Like, identify with clarity what that point is. And then as you're driving, as you're doing it, instead of, you know, when you have that uncomfortable feeling that comes up, and then you reach for the, you know, the Bluetooth and say, you know, hey Siri, call somebody, right? And instead of just sitting with it, that's the moment that you resist. That's the moment when you go into the uncomfortable sensation, because in that uncomfortable sensation, and sometimes when I have to do it, I have to, like, literally hold my breath and be like, oh, I do not like how this feels. It feels awful. But our emotions, especially the most powerful ones, they're just energy in motion. So they need the freedom to tell us whatever they need to tell us. And that's how we process it. So it doesn't have to be complex. You don't need to have, you know, some journaling area and a candlelight and, you know, a pen and paper and a beautiful notebook. Like, you can have a Post-it note and write it down and be like, okay, I'm feeling this. And then just explore it. Ask yourself the questions and sit with the uncomfortable, because that's what allows it to release.
Allison, do you think that, and this is gonna, it's so interesting to me because a lot of the work and the, self-help and personal development and really just self-care, which is so important. It at the core of all of it, and I don't mean this to take away from the art. I mean it to let everybody know they can be a part of it. It's so basic when we break it down. We have overcomplicated so much of it, and when it comes down to it, it's like, do you want to feel good? Do you want to feel good? Yes. So take a moment. And it can be more basic than it's worth. Can you give our listeners, like I have at 10:45 a.m. every day, an alarm goes off on my phone that says check in with yourself. And things like that in my life that seem so simple, but it's a reset. Like certain tattoos I have, I look down, it's a reset to be like, whatever's bothering you right now, stop. Like look away from it. And just remember, it's all about feeling good, right? So, A, do you agree that we've overcomplicated it? And B, do you have some quick tips to smacks in the face, as it were, right?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I do agree that we've overcomplicated it, but I think the simplicity of it has actually been what has overcomplicated it. So that is around the circle. So let me explain. We are taught if we want to deal with our stress, if we want to feel better, then we need to do what I call the five cores of stress management, right? We need to exercise and eat well and all of these different things. We need to meditate. But for some people, that doesn't work. Or, I look at the gym. There are a lot of people who are very stressed out hanging out at the gym every day. And so I think what we've done is we've put these platitudes in place, like just let it go. Don't take it personally. But the things that impact us the very most in our lives are the things that we can't let go. If you had to tell me to let something go, it actually means I can't let it go until I've processed it. And then I would say work through the problem-solving framework, and people can get access to that over on my website. There's a free lift up, and it'll explain more. But I think it's like, yes, we've overcomplicated it, but the advice that makes it look simple is not working. And so then what that does is it creates a layer of guilt. And, this is why, so if I had an appointment going off or an alarm going off at 10:45 a.m., it would be really disruptive to my life because that's probably when I'm in a meeting and it's probably when I'm in flow. And so this is where the self-development goes, because for you, it's like that has been a game changer. And so if that works for you, then please, please, please do not stop it. But if it doesn't work for you, then it's like, okay, where are the times in the day when I'm getting off the rails, when I am forgetting how peaceful I felt before all the day's challenges popped into my being? And what does that look like? And then what's the moment it happens, what's the cue or that sets you in motion? Identify that and then solve for that, because that piece of the puzzle is going to be different for everybody.
Allison, we gotta cut you off because we are out of time. I knew this would go by like a blitzkrieg. AllisonGraham.com/liftup. If you're longing for inspiration, go there. Thank you, Allison. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Love chatting with you both.
Thanks, friend.
Guys,
we
we'll
got
be right
some
back.
tailgating and football coming up. Games are being canceled. Cats, dogs, living in anarchy. What is happening around here? Jimmy Mac's going to break it down for us into your tailgating report.
A little country and western after that as well, too. Groovy stuff.